Hey everyone, welcome to another Thursday night live edition of the Lovecraft Easing podcast. If you're watching live, let me know that you can see me and hear me. That'd be great. And let's see who's been chatting. Jakester, Dave, Alan, and Darren. Hey Darren, you must not have got my message on YouTube, but email me. I give you my email address, but lovecrafteasing@gmail.com. Goes to the same place. Pete has a Robert E. Howard book from Rick's collection that you might be interested in buying. So just if you'll email me, I'll give Pete your information and you guys can take it from there. So, all right. Thanks, Dave. And hi, Suzanne. All right. I I don't know how long or how short this tonight's episode will be, but first of all, I hope everyone's doing well this week. If you're stormed all day here. If you're new to this um, Thursday night thing, you probably know that we do a Sunday podcast, and it's archived to YouTube. But I guess the last 9 or 10 months, we've been doing a Thursday night show as well. So, yeah, we have a full count of cats. Thank God. I had a question too about my volume. Is my volume? Can you guys hear me all right? I've been adjusting some things because I think my voice is just naturally low. Uh, how am I doing? Well, thanks, Dave. Darren, hey, Kelly, you caught that about emailing me, right? That Pete has a book you might want to buy. If you don't, that's fine too. Uh, I could be doing better, and I'll tell you why. I woke up this morning, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks. Something that hadn't even occurred to me. Uh, well, I knew that today is the 5 year. I don't know if anniversary is the right word of Joe Pulver's death. That was the first thought that hit my mind. I obviously remembered that. Uh, but what I didn't realize, for whatever reason, that Rick and Joe died within about 6 days, within a week of each other, 4 years apart. Rick died 1 year ago on April 30th, and Joe died 1 year ago today on April 24th, 2020. So it's just kind of tough to think about. I really loved those guys. Uh, they were on the podcast for a long time, but way more than that, they were just really, really great friends. Of course, not just to me, to the other panelists and other people in the easing community, the weird fiction community, Lovecraftian community too, all that. Um, I've got a picture that I forgot I had. Um, you know what? I don't think I can do a screen share with OBS. Or at least I'm sure there's a way, but I don't know how to do it. Anyway, if you go to my Facebook page, just my personal one, I posted a picture of Joe, Rick, and me at Necronomicon. And what it was a live Lovecraft Easing podcast, meaning we did it from the con. And Ramsey Campbell was there, and several others. If you look at the picture, you can see how happy Rick is and how happy Joe is. First of all, they were tickled pink that Ramsey was doing it with us. I told Joe especially, but Rick too. Listen, I'm going to take a back seat because I just wanted him to really enjoy the time with Ramsey and with the people who were in the audience. And if you knew Joe Pulver, you know that um, he's not he wasn't an introvert. In some ways he was, but he was a very uh, despite anything that might be going on inside his heart on a particular day, he was a very joyful person. And everyone knew that. Joe was one of those people who I would describe as uh, bigger than life. Um, Dave just wrote, the good thing about both Joe and Rick is that they have left a legacy, not only with their books, but also their friendships. Yeah, someone said a year ago after Rick passed away, they said a library has burned down today. Um, Rick just had so much in his head. He was such a genius with all this stuff, horror and especially pulp fiction. Um, anyway, if you're a Facebook friend, or even if you're not yet, it's public. You can see the picture of all three of us, and Rick's smiling, and Joe's smiling, and I'm smiling that they're having so much fun, as I was too. I don't know if this was the same convention, but there's Joe on a panel wearing a Lovecraft Easing t-shirt, and then here's a photo of Joe. I don't know who took it, but I think he used it in a lot of promotional materials, books, things like that. You know, great noir looking photo, which something else Joe loved, noir. Um, yeah, Rick wrote on the shadow. I'm gonna do a little bit of a show and tell. Now I've got forget the title, but Rick has a book on the shadow. Actually, I'll just pull my phone up. Uh, I got some I got some physical books to show you from both of these guys. Um, but if you're interested in the shadow at all, then yeah, here it is. The title of the book, I've got it on Kindle, is called A Chronology of Shadows, A Timeline of the Shadow's Exploits. And man, Rick was an expert on it. You can't see that very well. On the shadow. Well, he was an expert on anything he was interested in. Um, let's see here. Here's Shadows of the Opera. Different shadow, of course. Rick Leia's Shadows of the Opera, Retribution in Blood. Rick Leia's Sister of the Shadows. These are just a few of the books that Rick wrote and or contributed to. Um, I'll get the books out of the way first that I wanted to show you guys. Here's a book of Joe's called The House of Hollow Wounds that you should check out. Uh, a collection. There it is there. House of Hollow Wounds, and inside, that's from Joe. And I think anyone listening to this would probably be interested in reading all of these. But here's another one, the Grimscribe Puppets, edited by Joe. It's Thomas Ligotti fiction. Um, and that's not the best way to talk about that. But there are stories in here by Livia Llewellyn, Cody Goodfellow, John Paget, Richard Gavin, Simon Stranzas, Paul Tremblay, Jeffrey Thomas, John Langan, Gemma Files, Allison Bird. It's fabulous. So if you like weird fiction, if you like Thomas Ligotti, that is one to pick up. So here's another one. Now Joe loved the old Caligari movie, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and he edited this anthology several years before he passed away. And this is another one that, let's just put it to you this way. If you're out there and you're limited on funds, as most of us are these days, and you want to pick up a couple of Joe books, if you're into short stories, do the Grimscribe's Puppets and/or The Madness of Dr. Caligari. That House of Hollow Wounds is his collection now. As you all probably know, Joe was Mr. King in Yellow. He loved that mythos. And here is just one of the anthologies that Joe edited, stories in that universe, in that world. And again, we have Joel Lane. Let's see here. Gemma Files, Richard Lupoff, imagine that. Cody Goodfellow, John Langan, Laird Barron, and it's just a fabulous book. I'm serious. Now, the whole King in Yellow thing is just fascinating, and no one was more fascinated by it than Joe. Yeah, funny thing too. Coincidence? Whatever. My son does a lot of reading and learning in the form of audiobooks, but I don't mean audible. He'll listen to stories on YouTube constantly and, learn things about whatever that he's interested in constantly. I walked into his room today and he had a video up of someone explaining part of the King in Yellow mythos. And it was really cool. Do I like Robert Chambers? Sure. Yeah. While I like those those stories, I don't like his romantic fiction. But that's what paid his bills when he was alive, not the King in Yellow mythos. But seriously, and oh man, I'm just so happy that the publisher gave me this, and ditto with Grimscribe's Puppets. It's just, speaking of a legacy, Joe, people will be enjoying these books for a very long time to come. And in that way, Joe's still alive. In that way, Rick is still alive. When it hit me today, I just kind of broke down a little bit. Two of the talented, and nicest guys ever. Rick was just such a gentle soul. And I'm very glad that I got to spend so much time with him, know him, and have him count me as a friend, as I counted him as a friend. Here's an example of Rick's thoughtfulness. In 2022, when I was at Necronomicon, Rick was at a pulp convention, and I forget the name of the award, but it was an award he really wanted for years, if not decades, and it was kind of a lifetime achievement award for um, his contributions, huge contributions to the world of pulp fiction. And he called me on my cell, and he was so tickled because that's the year I got um, this award, which surprised the heck out of me, the Robert Bloch Award, um, which I guess the short version of that is what I was told is it's kind of a lifetime achievement award too. Um, but my point is, and I don't show these off very often, but trying to make a point that number one, it really shocked me that I got it, and I just really appreciate it. And Rick called me that night, and because I had been told I was going to get it, and I told Rick, um, he wanted to find out how it went, but more importantly, he wanted to tell me that he won his Lifetime Achievement Award. Same day. Same day. And he was very proud of it, of course. But the biggest reason for the phone call was he wanted to tell me that he won it on the same day that I won mine. And he was just tickled pink that we both won this sort of an award um, at the same time. It meant a lot to him and me as well. Thanks, Kim. Um, yeah, it's a nice award. Now, do something else that I don't usually do. I'm going to hold up my Shirley Jackson Rock nomination, 2016. And this is for Autumn Cthulhu. The reason why I bring this one up is to say something very similar about Joe. So, of all people, he was up for a Shirley Jackson that year too, which I consider Shirley Jackson Award to be the award when it comes to horror fiction. It's very prestigious, and the way the nominees and winners are chosen is very, very, for lack of a better word, professional. Uh, Joe was just tickled pink that we were both up for this award, for the Shirley Jackson Award, which, by the way, they give you a rock just for the nomination as well. So if you're nominated and you win, you get a rock, and if you're not just nominated and you don't win, you get a rock. So it's pretty cool. You know the old cliche, it's an honor just to be nominated, but man, it was for that award. Um, but my point is, Joe really wanted me to win, even though he was up for the Shirley Jackson in the same year at the same time. He really wanted me to win. Of course, he would have been happy if he won, but I don't think, honestly, he would have been as happy if he won. He really wanted me to win. As it turns out, neither one of us won. I forget who that year. I'm sorry. I don't remember. If anyone else remembers, type it in the side chat, and I'll give them their due, of course. But both of these guys, Rick was so happy that I won the same kind of award as him on the same day, and Joe was so happy that we were nominated for the same award in the same year. It's just I've never really thought about it that much until today, but it's amazing how both of my good friends we yeah. Um so that's that story. That was a little show and tell. You guys have been watching this podcast for I think a very long time, probably most of you, and you may have seen me mention these awards in the Shirley Jackson maybe one time before. I just don't do it, but I really wanted to do it tonight because of those reasons. You know, so this was in August of 2022 that Rick won that award, and I won the Block Award. And then the following April, Rick passed away. I'm so happy that he received the Pulp Fiction Award. I forget what it's called. Um, I actually didn't know I was going to talk about all this until like 5 minutes before I started. But I thought, this is the most important thing to talk about today. Uh, yeah, Rick was and Joe was. We won't see their like again. There's when Joe died, I wrote that same day. I wrote a little thing on Lovecraft Easing. Um, called Goodbye, My Friend. Joe Pulver, July 5th, 1955 to April 24, 2020. And I started with a quote. Sometimes in this life, you meet people who you might call large-souled, who are privileged to know. A person with a large soul. Definitely Joe, for Rick as well. Um, and I won't read this whole thing. You can take a look at it if you want. But in April of, it's funny that April keeps coming up here. In April 16th, 2016 was designated Pulver Day by Mike Griffin, another writer in our community. Now I'm reading from my website. He asked some of us to write tributes to Joe, and the results were grand. And I linked to him. Joe was very much with us at the time and got a real kick out of it. Excuse me. I applaud Mike Griffin for organizing something like this then, instead of waiting until a time came that Joe could not read them. The first part of my offering to Pulver Day was decidedly tongue-in-cheek. The last few paragraphs, not so much. And here they are. I spent many an hour with my friend Joe that way on video chats, talking about weird fiction, horror, you name it. Remember, I wrote this in 2016, but then I went back and read it the day he died, and I think it's very fitting, and I'm glad he got to read it before he died, and the others. He's gone now, but we still have his work. He lives on through his books, and he continues to inspire this new generation of weird fiction writers. I know because I've heard them talk about him. And lately, I've heard something else. One last tale, you might say. They say that sometimes, long after midnight, when the writing block sets in and everything feels hopeless, when they feel that perhaps they aren't cut out to be writers, or whatever art, right? When a gibbous moon hangs in the sky, and the stars almost look black, something strange happens. Their computer monitor flickers, and then a window opens on a corner of the screen. At first, all is dark. Then a match flares, and a man with a white beard and a drooping mustache lights a cigarette. He's sitting at a desk. Bookshelves tower over him. He glares, and they can feel his eyes boring into them. Through cables and Wi-Fi, and time and space from Carcosa. And then he speaks. Bleed, he says to them. Bleed on the page. And then he is gone. Bleed on the page was Joe's advice to many writers over and over. You know, all artists, put yourself in it, you know, bleed on the page. Let me give you guys the link to that if you're interested. Darren, I'm sorry about your mom. There's the link to that page. I was in my Gmail right before also, and I pulled up emails from Joe to me. There are at least a couple of thousand of them over the years. I met Joe in 2011, right after I started all this, and asked him if he wanted to send me a story, and he did. And, you know, a friendship slowly emerged, and, before too long, we were video chatting almost every day. Almost every day. I really miss that. I really do. I would sometimes I would ask him something, and instead of in an email, and instead of responding with the answer, he would respond with 5 minutes and about a million exclamation points after that. And what that meant was he was going to go make a cup of tea, and he wanted to video chat and talk about it instead of typing me back an email. I don't even know how many times that happened. Constantly. Or I'd send him a note saying, you want to chat? Or he'd send me a note saying, you want to chat? And sometimes we weren't even chatting that much. We were just had the video call open between us, and would occasionally say something to each other, but we were working. He might be writing or editing, and I was be doing the same thing or working on whatever with the easing. And yeah, I mean, neither one of us had jobs. This is my job, and writing was his job, and neither job paid very well, but we wouldn't trade it for anything. And I know he wouldn't. I wouldn't either. So as a result of that, we were free. Now he was in Germany. He had moved to Germany to be with Kat, who he later married at one of the Necronomicons. I was the best man, and the time difference. Let's see. Was usually, I think, about 6 hours, depending on daylight savings. So if I was talking to him at noon, it was 6 p.m. His time. If I was talking to him at 6 p.m., it was midnight his time or thereabouts. Um, well, Kim, I don't know if you'd even call it a living that he was making or me. We both were lucky enough to have wives that really supported and support, present tense, what we do, what he did. And my wife has a real job. Kat had a real job, and helping to support his dream, you know, um, which is what Danielle does now. Of course, her dream job is teaching, so um, we're both kind of living our dream, and hopefully we'll be able to keep doing that. But yeah, my point is that we were pretty much always always free when the other one wanted to chat, and I just I, I I guess I just keep saying that I miss it, and I miss him. Um, it's just so funny. I'm looking at all of these emails between us. Uh, here's one, 2016, May 2013. From me to Joe. Sorry I missed you before. You around or asleep? And then next morning he goes, sorry I missed you a second time. You okay? Hope so. And I replied with, yep, just wanted to say hi. And then he replied with 2 minutes. So you see what I mean. Um, there's so many emails here. That's the good thing about one of the good things about Gmail, I guess. There's if you archive your emails instead of deleting them, then they're always saved, and you have no idea what's going to happen, and you'll be glad that they are saved. Um, let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Email from me to Joe in September 2013. Just thought I'd check in. I haven't seen you for a little while. He replied about an hour later, which would have been, Jesus Christ, 4 or 5 in the morning for him. Um, Sorry to not have been around. Bit a bit under the weather. The return of my diabetic infections. These things take the stuffing out of me and will not go away. They also make sitting hard. Uh, and I was a bit depressed. You well know how that goes. Also stressing about a new tale. I don't think the editor that invited me will like the damn thing. Hell of a talented guy, but maybe didn't know how talented he was. More soon, best, and hugs with about a million S's after that. Um, the old joke was that if you were writing anything for the day in our community, you better reserve your exclamation marks early in the day. Otherwise, Joe would use them all. Let's see if I can find something else to read to you guys. Here's jump up to 2016. Oh, great quote, Cody. Thank you. October 2016. From me to Joe. I forgot to tell you that your copies of Nightmare's Disciple have been on their way, but they will take a while to get there. Maybe into December, but they are on their way. Okay, thanks. No worries. About 20 exclamation points. Hope you feel okay today. About 15 exclamation points. Me, pretty depressed lately. Excuse me. He replies, I do not like hearing that! Exclamation points. You're tops in my book, and many other people's too. I wish you felt like you were. Um, just, here's my friend. When I needed encouragement, he gave it to me, and I really, I hope that I did the same for him. Um, I want to believe this. Kat has told me a couple times, Kat, his wife, has told me a couple times after Joe passed away that because of the easing community, the video chats, the Sunday show, all that stuff, Joe was all the way over in Germany, missing being physically in the weird fiction community, so to speak. And she said I opened up a whole world for him that he was able to participate in. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing. I hope that I really did do that. You know, um, he certainly enjoyed being on the show. He and Rick were kind of opposites on the show. Rick didn't say a lot, but he loved being there, and then he would chime in with some fact or observation that none of us had thought of or knew. You know, he was amazing like that. And Joe would just talk a lot. And we went one convention we went to. Um, Somebody came up to Joe and said that they watched the podcast all the time, and said, "Joe, you're my favorite character on that show." Joe's like, "Oh, okay. It's not fake though. It's real." Uh, that was another thing too. Going to conventions. Mark Rainey experienced this last year. He walked into an elevator at in the hotel that he was staying in, an economic convention, and this guy he didn't know says to him, "Hello, Mr. Rainey," and Mark's like, uh, "Hello," and the person was like, "Yeah, I see you on the podcast all the time." Uh, Joe just loved that. He loved to chat, to talk. Um, I'll tell you, conventions. I love going to them. I love seeing everyone. Um, when I can. I miss Joe's contributions, his main contribution. He was always on panels, always had great things to say. I mean, really great things. But the thing that he loved, I think, best at a convention is something that we all love is just hanging around talking with each other and spending time with each other, talking about horror or whatever. Joe would always be outside smoking a cigarette by one of the building doors, hotel, whatever, and not guests, excuse me, people who had bought tickets to say Necronomicon, as well as other panelists and so forth and guests of the convention. He just drew people in. They would walk past and go, "Oh, that's Joe Pulver," and he'd always have this group of people around him, listening to him and just hanging on his every word. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to give the impression that the people listening to him were like, "Oh, there's this old guy and he's talking. We'll humor him and then we'll get away when we can." No, they were hanging on his every word, and he would just convey such excitement about all of them doing what they were doing, whether they were a fan, a fellow writer, an artist, a dork podcaster like me, just any person that part of the weird fiction community, and they would leave the conversation with Joe so excited and so renewed, if that makes sense. So, um, oh, Dave says that Rick was responsible for me watching Cold Shack for the first time. Well, I am glad because Cold Shack is awesome. Um, Kim says he was almost larger than life. Well, he definitely was. Okay, Dave, you know what I'm talking about. Dave says, at the San Pedro Lovecraft event, I hung out with him smoking a cigarette by a mailbox. So, yeah, yep. Okay, everybody, pop quiz. What's your favorite Kolchak episode? Mine is They Have Been, They Are, They Shall Be, something like that. And I like the one about the rats, too. Not the rats, God, I'm blanking on the title. Those are my two favorites. So what are yours? Um, Rick was just got progressively worse and worse. He had Parkinson's. And if you go back and you see a video of him, I mean, you see him on the show and 10 years ago, there's quite a marked difference than if you watch him on the podcast in the last couple of years. Um, but he loved doing it. He loved being on it. And, as he got worse, I think that it just helped kept him involved in the horror community at least, and Pulp Fiction to a degree, but um, for anybody that was interested in that, which plenty were. Um, he was on he was on Sunday before he died, is my point. He was on Sunday and he passed away a few days later. Let me see. April 2024. Um, Passed away on April 30th last year. He was on the podcast, my God, on April 28th, and was quiet as usual, but near the end of the episode he had some, and you have to turn up the volume at this point to hear him, but he had some words of wisdom on the topic that we were talking about, which, as I recall, it was something about writers and artists and the motivation for what they do, money versus other things, and so forth. I won't get into it, but 2 days before he passed away, he was still contributing. I saw my phone ring, and I saw that it was his daughter calling me, and my heart just sunk. I just knew that he must have passed away. He passed away very peacefully in the night, according to his wife. She said she checked on him earlier in the evening. He was okay, and then in the morning he didn't get up. Um, I wish he was still around. I wish Joe was still around. I If I had loads of time, what I would do is create a video from the podcast episodes over the years. Clips of both of these guys, so it could all be in one video for people to enjoy. Not every episode, I'm not saying that, but some highlights over the years and everything. Maybe someday I'll be able to do that, but that's not within the realm of possibility for me right now. But all right, let's see here. Horror in the Heights. Yes, thank you, Dave. All right, favorite Kolchak episode. Dave, the werewolf. Kim, the Trevi collection. Kim, that was Rick's favorite episode. Let's see here. What else do we got? Suzanne Rugaru. Kelly says the one with Morticia. I don't know which one that one is. What else do we got here? Trevi collection, yeah. Kim says they have been. Yep, that's my other favorite. Oh, right. Alan says he was on the Patreon Hangout the Friday before as well. I know a lot of patrons are really glad that they were on those episodes with Rick and that weren't broadcast, weren't recorded, but just time talking to Rick, you know. So yes, Kim, I'm not kidding. The Trevi collection was Rick's favorite episode. Yeah. All right. I don't know what else to say about these guys except that I miss them very much. Of course, I don't want to imply that. I mean, there are many other people who were friends with Joe who miss him too, and Rick. But just speaking about myself, I miss them terribly. I guess a few closing remarks I would say about both of them is that Joe was the most encouraging kind of elder statesman type of dude in the weird fiction community that you could imagine. He felt that the pie was big enough for everyone, that you didn't have to really per se compete with other writers and creators, just to create your best and go from there. He was very, but in addition to, let me start over. Joe was a fantastic writer, very poetic writer, very poetic writer. A fantastic editor, and fantastic friend, and very, very encouraging to everyone else in the community. He did not have a hypocritical bone in his body. It was all genuine. If you were in the community, he wanted to see you succeed, and if there was something that he could do to help, he would do it. Rick, I'm almost 54 years old. I think that Rick is quite possibly the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. He was one of those guys that I could look to and admire because he was so talented. He was so smart. He knew everything. But he didn't have an ego at all. In one episode, well, he said this more than once. You see this book here, this is just one example. Rick Lay's Sisters of the Shadows. Okay. Rick would sometimes say, I wish they wouldn't put my name in the title. It's not like I'm Stephen King or something. That's a direct quote. He would always refer to himself as a very obscure writer. I think he was quite a bit less obscure than he pretended to be, but he was just very humble. Um, and I miss him being on, not just being on the show, which I know all of you guys miss Rick being on the show. You miss, if you've been around a while, you miss Joe being on the show as well. Um, but I just miss them as friends. And uh, yeah, listen, thanks to all of you for spending your part of your Thursday evening with me. Um, let's see here. Kim says, I was so thrilled to meet him at Necronomicon 15 that I was tongue-tied and forgot to introduce myself. I'm not laughing at you, Kim. I think it's cute. Only to find out he'd gone and asked about me. He knew my name. Yep, that's Joe. One time Joe commented on a vampire interlude I'd posted on Facebook, and I was beside myself. Yeah, Way Stations of the Deep Night. I'm glad you read it, Darren. It's a great book. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Very good book. Um, yeah, so anyway, like I was saying, thanks for spending part of your evening with me, and thank you for listening to me talk about Joe and Rick. But tonight of all nights, I really just couldn't talk about anything else besides those two guys. If I go through my life and people view me as encouraging and helpful as Joe Pulver was to others, and if people view me as nice of a guy as Rick is, which I think is unattainable, but um, then those are a couple huge markers of living a successful life for me, because they cast long shadows and they provided examples and ideals to live up to. You know what I mean? Um, they were, and there's more people that do, more writers and creators that do this, but they were two creators that proved that you can be immensely talented and not be an egotistical ass. Um, so anyway, I really hope that if you haven't experienced Joe Pulver's writing, that you try these, and his editing. He was just as great of an editor as a writer. I would start with his anthologies. I would start with these two: Grimscribe Puppets and The Madness of Dr. Caligari. Okay, and as far as his writing, oh, and if you like the King and Yellow stuff, which don't we all? Season in Carcosa, that's one of his anthologies. You can Google for the rest. Yes, he didn't get to see the publication of Leaves of a Necronomicon, Alan, um, but it's great, isn't it? Thank you, Kim. Casilda's Song is another King in Yellow uh, type anthology. The Carcosa mythos, you might say. And yeah, read those. Um, if you're into pulp fiction, man, did Rick contribute a lot. If you have an interest in the shadow, then check out A Chronology of Shadows by Rick Lay. That one is on Kindle too. I know because I have it on Kindle. Uh, and I do a lot of highlighting in that particular book, let me tell you. Um, Also, if you want to read a story or two of Rick's for free, you can go to the Lovecraft Using website, and at the top, just click on it's one of the last tabs, Lovecraft Easing Stories Classic. Go to website edition, and or just search on the right side, search Pulver or Lay, Lai, and you'll see their stories. And Rick also contributed some articles as well. He also contributed something, excuse me, for Patreons only a couple of years ago, 2023. Darren, you might be interested in this. I'm looking at an email from Rick, December 29, 2023, talking about the next episode on Sunday. Mike, we can discuss the issues raised in Robert E. Howard's The Door of the World on Sunday. I actually wrote a privately circulated article on this very subject for the Robert E. Howard United Press Association. Please forward it to the Patreons. That is on Patreon. So, anyway, thanks. I'm sorry to just keep going on, but I really love these guys, and I hope that if you didn't know them personally, that maybe you've gotten a little taste of who they were, and that you're going to check out some of their books. I hope you do that. So if you do, let me know what you think of them. I'm sure you'll love them, and comment below. You guys have a good night, and if you're Patreon at the deep ones leveling up, then I will see you tomorrow at the Patreon hangout that we do every Friday. So, thank you guys. Have a good night.